I'm very excited here today to welcome Dr. Shefali. I think I sound like a... Her books, I'm holding one in my hand, has all the stickers and the highlights because I've honestly been in a journey reading different parenting books. I've never seen a book in parenting that talks about the parent rather than the child. And I think this is amazing that the focus is about the parent and our journey and how we are projecting our own selves to our kids and how we're shaping that journey and being part of it. Let me introduce a little bit about who's Dr. Shefali. She's a well-renowned clinical psychologist who received her doctorate from Columbia University in New York. She's been a keynote speaker in different occasions. One of the key ones were at Life Class by Oprah Winfrey in her own network. I think Oprah have described her book as one of the profound parenting books, and we're very lucky today to welcome her. I want you to please come to the stage.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for having me. Sorry. I am so happy to be here. I was telling Fatima when I received the invitation to come and speak here, I was certain that it was a fake email, because who gets invited from Abu Dhabi to talk on conscious parenting? I was so impressed, and I'm humbled to be here. Thank you all for joining me. I see that Abu Dhabi is on the precipice of so much transformation. I'm so impressed by the initiatives to allow women to be more empowered and to give tools for all, both women, men, children of both genders, an opportunity to really see a horizon that is limitless. So my awe and humility could not be greater. I started my passion for working with people as a clinical psychologist in my early 20s. And like most of you may remember, when you start out as a young adult, you truly believe that there are key ingredients that make you happy. I was no different. In psychology, you try to identify what are the key ingredients that make up a happy life. So the predictable ones are a stable family, relatively high, middle to high income, parents who stay together, good education, values, tradition, correct? These are the things you would think would make one happy. Well, then when I really began working with people as a therapist and really had them on my couch, and most of the families I would do therapy with, I could check off all these things: high status, long-term marriages, good education. But why were they on the therapist's couch? Why were they so unhappy? Could it be that this checklist wasn't the perfect predictor of a happy life? What was missing? And then I began noticing more and more the layers that go into what makes up a family. And I began to see that the real dysfunction wasn't education, wasn't the child. The problem was in the... But now how do I share with the world that the problem wasn't anything to do with the checklist? It had to do with something that no one was talking about. It had to do with this vast, unexplored, and very terrifying terrain called the parental unconscious. And you know, because it's the unconscious, it's unconscious. So how do you talk about something that's not conscious? So this was a true conundrum for me. I had not yet become a mother myself, so you know how non-parents are so superior? Remember how you used to be as a non-parent? You always thought to yourself when you saw the wailing kid on the airplane, you were like, what is wrong with that parent? Why can't she get that kid under control? And then you become a parent and you realize how inordinately difficult it is, right? So me too, before I became a parent, I was so superior, and I used to see my clients and say to myself, I would never do that. My child will know 3 languages, and my child will be a child prodigy and beg me to take her to the museum every single Sunday and say, no, I don't want to go to the amusement park. I want to go listen to a violin concert. That was going to be my child, so I thought. And then I became a parent. And how long does it take before you're crumbling to your knees, begging for some help, claiming that, claiming your insanity to the world, saying, I don't know how to do this. But there's no one to turn to, because if you tell your mother that you don't know how to do it, what is she going to say? Well, I didn't know how to do it, and you turned out okay. And you're like, no, I don't think I turned out okay. I really don't think you knew what to do, and I don't think I turned out okay. So now how do you, as a mother, change that? Or as a father, do it with consciousness? Well, no one teaches us how. No one teaches us. So after I became a parent, I began to see that this thing called the unconscious really is made up of what I call the ego, right? The ego, which is, let me just explain what the ego is. The ego is the part of you that is living in response to what the outside world tells you. So the ego is the unconscious part of you that thinks it's the real self, but it's not the real you. It's the self that follows the checklist of, I'll get married at this age, and I'll get a degree, and then I'll get a job, and then I'll look really thin and pretty, and I'll be really rich, and I'll have a Bentley or a Ferrari, or at least a Mercedes. And this self that constructs itself based on a checklist is the false self. So I began to see in my practice how this ego, the false self, is what we teach our children to develop, instead of teaching them how to tune in to who it is they truly are. So one of the most profound memories I have of a client was this father, Thomas, we shall call him, and he came to me really stricken with guilt. And I said to him, Thomas, what's wrong? What happened? And he said, I'm feeling such waves of disappointment in myself because yesterday I was doing homework with my son, we shall call him Charlie, and I lost my temper at Charlie, so much so that I smacked him. So many parents come to me in shame or guilt. I'm sure you've never felt shame or guilt. Himself or find a bridge back. So what had happened was that he was doing homework with Charlie, and it was a math project, and the father says, no, you couldn't have done this on your own. There has to be some problem solving, like you can't be such a genius. And Charlie's face fell and said, no, Dad, I'm so good at it. So here you have a child begging for the parent to see him for who he is, but the father was unable to do that. So they get into a battle. Where's the working out? No, Dad, I didn't do it. And they get into a back and forth. So typical. Before you know it, Charlie starts to cry and says, I hate you, you're always doubting me, and begins to stomp out of the room, to which the father says, how dare you leave the room? How dare you talk to me like that? You come back here, and slapped him. After a few hours, the father felt remorse and asked Charlie to do another set of problems just in case the son is really smart. What if the father completely missed the point that the son was smart? So he gave him another set of problems, and guess what? Charlie was able to do it on his own, again, automatically, without any problem solving. So now Thomas is in therapy, wondering why he acted the way he did. Why was he so consumed with so much anger? Where did this anger come from? Have you ever felt like that, where you're so consumed with a reaction towards your child and you're like, where is this coming from? The kid just didn't eat ice cream. Why am I getting so angry? Or he just broke a pencil, or he just broke a vase. Why am I getting so angry? This is a typical phenomenon in parenting, and it's not abnormal. It's coming from the unconscious. So I explained to Thomas that this reaction is seen across every household. We have to deconstruct it. And I helped Thomas to go inside himself to understand where this was coming from. And within a few moments, I realized that Thomas, growing up, was not good at math and used to cheat himself. And he used to get into trouble with his father all that he felt with his father was still sitting inside him, now triggered. When I showed Thomas that this is a pattern that gets repeated, he was able to see that not only with his child does it get repeated, but in his own self, the memory of him as a child with his father and the fighting that he engaged in with his father was still in him, causing shame, causing insecurity. He didn't even know it was there. And now when he has a child, that's when it gets triggered. So our children do that to us, you see. They come to us and we think we're so superior, we know how to do this, we're going to raise a child Michael Phelps or a child Julia Roberts or Mother Teresa, you know, something of every best quality of every superhuman possible. And our child is going to be the perfect mix because we're thinking it's a pottery project or a PhD, some sort of cartoon, you know, big landscape we're going to put up in our living room. We think it's a sculptor, that we are sculptors and we're creating a sculpture. You know, what are we thinking? This is how we raise our children, believing that we're making a product. When Thomas realized what he was doing to his child, he understood that if he did not break this cycle, then his child would be carrying the same shame forward. So this is the pivotal point of my teachings, that there is such a thing called the unconscious. If we parents don't start looking in the mirror and owning that what we are doing to our children is not raising a spirit, but simply projecting onto them. So projecting on means putting onto them something that is really belonging to us. So much so that we don't even know the difference between what's ours and what is our child. Most of you here don't even truly know your children. You don't. Because to truly know your children would mean that you have to truly know yourself. And to truly know yourself would mean that you have been uncovering this thing called your unconscious in a very serious way. And very few of us do that. We don't dedicate our lives to knowing who it is we are. What kind of family did I come from? How was I raised? With what kind of conditioning was I engaging with myself and the world? Because how you were raised by your parents is how you will automatically deal with yourself and your children. This is an automatic process. So in my therapy practice, I see rich and successful and pretty and skinny and image perfect celebrities and artists and financial investment bankers and successful surgeons. Everything that you would think on paper would create a perfect sense of self. But yet, they are deeply empty from inside. And the reason for this is because we do not take our self-awareness and our self-connection as seriously as we should. Because this is not how we were raised. We were raised with a prescription plan. By the time our children are not even out of the womb and not even 2 years old, and we've already been deciding their career, their life path. You know, it starts from the moment of conception. Should I send them to an American school or a British school? Should I give them organic food or non-organic? Should my child be into sports or into the arts? Piano or violin? All of you have done this because this is our conditioning. We're conditioned to create a child. We are not conditioned to raise a spirit, because who has time? Who has time for the spirit of the child to unfold? You have patience? Because it takes a few years, at least 5 or 6, before you can see who it is your child is. But by 6 years old, we've already decided their destiny and their fate. One of the youngest clients I had was a 16 or 17-month-old baby. The mother came to see me and said, there's something wrong with my child. And she had all these brochures, my child has reactive attachment disorder, autism spectrum disorder, pervasive development disorder. Thanks to the field of psychology, of which I'm a representative, we have 1,000 disorders to slap onto our children. So she came with all the brochures. She's like, my child's got to be one of these because my child isn't connecting to me. So I said to myself, my goodness, at 16 months, right? Like, she really has audacity to come and tell me her child at 16 months is already all wrong. But I went to her home. In those days, I used to make home visits. And I wanted to observe what could be wrong, how evil could this child be. So I observed the feeding. She was feeding her child. And I was sitting in the distance, waiting for the clues. Would this child be throwing the porridge back in the mother's face? Waiting for Evel Knievel to show up. So while I did not see an evil child, I did see a deeply disconnected mother and daughter. What I saw was a 17-month-old baby who refused to make eye contact with its mother. So the mother's like making the helicopter and making all the train sounds to put the food in the mouth, and the child would look away. So I thought to myself, maybe the mother's right. Maybe there is something wrong with this little toddler. So then I told the mother to leave the room, and I went back, and I said, now let me interact with the little baby. As soon as I sat there, guess what happened? The baby could lock its eyes on me, a big smile, and before you know it, was engaging with me with such energy and vitality and vivacity. I almost wanted to tell the baby, don't do this, your mother will get angry with me. Like, why are you doing this? Don't get us into trouble, child. But of course, the baby did not understand, and I had a delicious dynamic with this baby. So now I'm in trouble. Now I'm like, how can I tell this mother, in a way she's right, but in a way she's so wrong? And you have to be gentle with the ego of a very young mother, right? I mean, you have to be very careful. You know how our egos are. Like, we cannot take it first that we're wrong, but then we also can't take it that our child is only not connecting to you, and they're connecting with other people. Right? We're in a competition that the child must connect to us the most. So I gently got the mother into the room and began to understand the mother's history. What kind of family did she come from? How did she interact with her mother? Because the clues to your existence, all the answers to why you're unhappy today, come from your earliest years in your home. There's no mystery to this. It's the first 6 years of your life that shape your entire existence. Can you imagine? The first, I'll give you 7, 8. Sometimes I get a mother of a 10-year-old. She's like, please tell me I'm not late. So I go, okay, we can stretch it to 10. But like by 11, it's getting late. Because the first few years are the most pivotal. The most powerful years of a person's life are the first 6 or 7 years. I mean, it's fascinating. And of course, there's always hope, and you can always change, and there's always transformation to be had at 55. But let me tell you, you will be working against what happened in your first 10 years. So for those of you who still have young children, take this opportunity to enter this journey with consciousness. So I began to excavate what happened to this mother, because I was certain something must have happened, that this child, these psychic, intuitive children pick up on. You see, our children are not blobs that we're just creating. They are deeply sensitive creatures. They are constantly adapting to who it is you are in a scary way. Your unconsciousness, you think you're so conscious, the sneaky, the most subdued layers of your unconsciousness will show up in your child. They will mirror it back to you and trigger you. There's no escaping it. This is the beauty and the curse of being a parent. It will all show up. It's your willingness to look in the mirror. So this mother then revealed to me how she grew up with an alcoholic father, how she grew up in a deeply disconnected home and never had a close relationship with her parents, and how she finds it so hard to even make eye contact with her own infant. But the beauty is not that she suffered. The beauty of the story I'm telling you is that the child knew this. The child picked up on this fact that my mother is unreliable. And the child already began creating a defense against it. So the child already knew, don't lock eyes with this inconsistent caregiver. Don't depend on her because she'll break your heart. So the child already has created a defense. Do you understand? So the rudeness that you see in your children, or the eye rolling you see that annoys you, or the teenager that slams the door, or the one that wears the hoodie and the earplugs and like covers their whole face so you do not see them, those are not evil children who are just rude because they're rude and this is the generation that's rude. No, they have created a defense against us. So every time my daughter slams the door and I see my instinct to charge at her with my ego, with my unconsciousness that feels wounded as a parent and wants to make it all about me, I have another part in me that is now aware to ask, maybe she's slamming the door against the poison of my unconsciousness. Maybe this is a moment that I need to pause and go, what about me makes her want to keep me out? And as I watch the battle between my desire, my incessant, insatiable hunger to control my child and to establish dominance, I also see another part of me that has trained itself to stop and go, it's all about me. She's reflecting something about me. Do I dare to look in the mirror and ask myself, what about me is so unappetizing to my child right now that she can't even bear to have me in the room? But these are tough questions to ask. Which parent wants to look in the mirror and say, what about me is so unappetizing to my child right now? What about me is causing this in my infant? The other day I had a client from Australia call me on Skype. I do a lot of Skype sessions, insisting that there's got to be a conscious way to discipline a 2-year-old. So before the therapy could even begin, or the coaching, we got into a philosophical debate because I said to the client, I cannot even continue with you if we don't get this settled, because there will be no hope here because I have a different philosophy. And he said, no, give me a conscious way to discipline my child. I said, no, you just want me to appease your guilt because you still are asking for a way to control your child. My approach to disciplining a 2-year-old or a 4-year-old or a 12-year-old is very different. It's not the mainstream way. So I began to explain to this client that a 2-year-old, a 4-year-old, even a 12-year-old is perhaps developmentally unable to control their emotions, to have control over their behaviors. Doesn't mean they don't get to be accountable, but you can't punish a 2-year-old. And he's like, what about if I make it a really pretty, sweet, naughty corner, and I make the naughty corner where I punish the child really padded with pictures and balloons. I go, no, it's still shaming the child. You cannot put a 2-year-old in any corner because a 2-year-old doesn't understand. But every parent has a problem with this, right? Because every parent wants to control their children. Control to establish that they are good enough, right? Because what happens when your 2-year-old doesn't listen to you and then your 12-year-old doesn't listen to you? What do you think happens inside the parent? A great feeling of failure, of helplessness. We're not thinking about the child, we're thinking about ourselves. All our attempts to discipline our children come from one place only. No desire to help the child. The only desire is to reestablish control. because we feel out of control. The child has managed to make you feel so inadequate. Even a 2-year-old has made you feel so inadequate, so like a failure, that your unconscious fear that you are actually not good at parenting comes up, and you're going to pay that child back for making you feel like this. So can you imagine this entire industry called childhood discipline has been created by us, by psychologists, teachers, pediatricians, psychiatrists, for the reason of controlling children. There's a whole industry, and I'm calling it out. I'm going against my own livelihood by calling it out, because it's an industry that's predicated not on the well-being of children, it's predicated on the control of another spirit. So when I brought this up into the mainstream, I received a lot of lashback, a lot of resistance, because discipline is one of the most used words in parenting books. It is the biggest way to sell a parenting book. Every parent wants to know how to discipline their child. Think about it. Do you ever discipline your husband? I mean, you want to, but do you ever? You don't. You can't. You can't, because you know this is another adult. He or she and your wife is not going to take it. You can't discipline your wife. That you know for sure. Right? You don't even think about it. You don't dare. Because you know that you cannot trespass into another's territory. You cannot over-control anybody. Can you discipline your boss or your colleagues? Can you discipline your friends? Do you ever tell your friend, I'm going to take away your watch or your phone because you forgot my birthday or came late for lunch? You don't, right? So how is it that we dare to discipline our children? I'll tell you how it is. Because children are the only ones we can over-control by our physical power till they overshoot us, right? So from 0 to 7, 8, we can finally control somebody in our lives. And this is what we've been waiting for subconsciously. Because ever since we were children and subjugated and dominated, all we've been waiting for is the chance to do this to someone else. This is why we love to discipline our children. It is the regaining of power that we never had when we were children. It's a sickness. And when I say this to people, it's not popular. I understand. I'm taking away your greatest tool. I'm taking away your greatest power. It's called parenting discipline. There are books and books on it. And I'm calling it out. I'm saying, no, there's no such thing. It's actually abuse. It's actually control. It's actually your own desire for dominance and power. So unpopular. But I must do it because it's a cover-up. Our use of discipline is a cover-up. It's a sham. It's a lie. You are pretending to discipline your child. What you're really wanting to do is control your child. What you're really wanting to do is establish how good you are, how competent you are. This is what all discipline, the current model of discipline, stands for. Every time you raise your voice, it's because you can. Every time you take away their phone, their iPad, their computer, which incidentally, you bought them, and then you take it away, and then you do this ping pong game every single day, is because you dare, because you can. Because the psychologists, the teachers, the pediatricians have given you this power under the rubric of discipline. But now tell me, taking away a phone every time your kid rolls their eyes at you, do you think that's discipline? Do you think that's teaching them anything? And then how many times do you give back the phone in a few hours? This is me at home. I take it away, I give it back. Take it away, I give it back. Because there's no sense to it. It makes no sense. And how many things can you take away? Thank goodness for a few electronic items, right? So you have a few things to take away. But after you've taken away their iPhone, their computer, TV time, and their laptop, what else can you take away that they really care about? Anything? Nothing. And then what? Then you're left with what? Nothing. So you've yelled at them, you've cussed at them, you've called them a loser, you wish you never had them. Okay, that's 8 disciplinary strategies. Then what? We have nothing else. So we have nothing else because there is nothing else. Because all of this is just a manic thirst for control. So the way that I have been trying to transform this whole paradigm of discipline, which has received so much lashback, is to first teach parents that all that we do with our children comes from our past. Not a direct past, like if your mother made you eat carrots, you're going to make your kid eat carrots. No, no, no. From your emotional past. How you felt as a child is going to have a direct bearing on how you raise your children. It is inevitable. There is no escaping this. I'll give you a funny example of my friend. And she said to me, she said, you know, Shefali, how you always say that the unconsciousness is in the water you drink and in the air you breathe, right? Because all of us parents think you can outwit the unconscious just by not talking the way your mother talks. You think you're outwitting the past. Or just because you don't raise your voice like your father raised your voice, you think you're outwitting the past. Or just because you didn't beat your kid up because you were beaten, you think you're ahead of the game. You are. You are. But not entirely. So she was telling me, she said, I've got a funny story to tell you. And I said, tell me. So she said, she was describing herself, that she had a morbid fear of going to the bathroom in a public bathroom. So much so that it's handicapped her in her life. So when she had a child, she made a solemn oath, I will not pass on this phobia to my child. I will not. I will not talk about it. I will not show it. And she tried to, straitjacket herself from not showing this craze about her because she was so crazy about it. So she thought she had succeeded. One day she's walking with her 4-year-old to school and the kid needs to go to the bathroom. So she's so proud of herself because she's saying all the right things. She's like, even though inside she's like quivering, she's like, let's go to the McDonald's and let's go to the bathroom in the McDonald's. But inside she's shaking because she can't bear the idea, but she's pretending, right? We're pretending. So she's like, come on, let's go. And she's thinking that she's going to break this for generations to come. She's breaking the family pattern. And the kid looks at her and says, oh, I can't go and pee outside. And the mother could hear herself reflected back. And she's like, this cannot be. I've worked so hard to not pass on my crazy. How is this child reflecting back to me? So the mother kept it together and she said, no, come on, I'll get you a burger. It's like 8:30 in the morning. I'll get you a milkshake. I'll get you chocolate. We do anything. So the daughter dug her heels in and said, no, I'm not going. So the mother is standing there, she told me, my friend. She said, and I'm watching myself at the age of 4. And she's saying to me, how did my child pick this up? How can this be that my past is coming back to me? And I said to my friend, I said, your trying to avoid it is not going to change anything. Your healing it will change it. And your child is showing back to you what is not yet healed in you. Can you look in the mirror and heal it instead of avoiding it? So this is what we do, you see. We don't realize the power of this thing called the unconscious. It's everywhere. You cannot escape it. Your children will reflect it back to you. Your choice is to look in the mirror or avoid the mirror, to accept the teaching or reprimand the teaching. But every moment in life, but especially with your children, is a moment to go inward and ask, how does this reflect something about me, or control your child? Each moment will be a moment, if you go within and ask those questions, it'll be a moment to connect to your child, or it'll be a moment to simply control your child. So every moment in parenting then becomes about connection or control. Connection or control. So if you can look at your child as your teacher, inviting you, Mom, Dad, why are you just automatically telling me to study hard? Why are you automatically telling me that I'm a loser? Why are you automatically getting angry with me? Why are you automatically yelling at me if I don't finish my food? Why aren't you connecting with me? Truly asking me what it is that I need in this moment. What is it that I wish? What does my body want in this moment? Why aren't you connecting with me? So I can guarantee you, as a therapist, the pervasive problem in all my adult clients, 40s, in their 50s, in their 60s, what do you think is the pervasive problem? Is this feeling from within that who it is they are is not good enough. 70-year-olds, when I boil down their problem, it comes down to this core feeling within that who it is they are is not worthy. Where do you think this core problem starts from? It starts from you, the parent. This is why I do the work I do. Because forget the fancy degree, and forget how pretty and Botoxed you are, and forget how financially successful your husband is. But if you from within haven't felt who it is you are, and then haven't felt that who that person is good enough, then what is the point of any of the outside? Then you and I and you are all living a lie. Is this how we want to raise our children? Following the herd, filling up applications for high school and they're not even in kindergarten yet, dreaming of which Ivy League school in which fancy country they're going to go to? Or truly changing the game of parenting and saying to yourself, I'm not playing the game like every other parent out there. I'm going to parent my child differently. So this is my dare to you. This is my challenge. Don't follow the traditional way of raising your children. Take it from a therapist who's only worked for 2 decades with all kinds of crazy. The crazy is the inability of the person to know who it is they are. This starts from childhood. It's up to you to change the game, to tell your child that they are not their grade. They are not their skin. They are not their fat or their thin. They are not their friends. They are not who they marry. They are not even your family. They are only their own deepest connection with themselves. And if you as a parent can give them this gift of knowing who it is they are without the fancy on the outside, you would have given your children a gift that will last them their entire life. If the marriage doesn't work out, they still have that. If they have no fancy cars in their driveway, they still have that. If their hair falls or turns to gray, they still have that. But only you can give that. You as the parent can give that, but you can only give that if you start working on that for yourself. If you stop living a lie, if you stop pretending you are your hair, your beauty, your skin, your tradition, or your external value, your success or your wealth or your image or your identity. If you change, they will change. Every problem you see in the world today, from climate control to terrorism, to the ideological religious wars, to the schoolyard bullying, to the anorexia, to the cutting of the skin, to violence, to rape. All problems come from a self that is disconnected to itself. If the person who was going to bomb the school had a childhood where they were deeply connected to who it is they are, they cannot hurt another human being because they so value who it is they are. But if that self has been trampled and walked on and dominated by unconsciousness in the house, of course they will go and bomb the school because life doesn't matter, because their life did not matter. Everything begins from how it is each person values themselves, honors their heart, finds expression to their own voice. But if your voice has been stampeded out, has been ignored, has been mutilated, has been denied, then this is what you will do in the world. You will do it to the trees. You will do it to the person who doesn't believe in your God. You will do it to the funny-looking kid in the schoolyard. What is the difference? If you have been stamped out from within, all you will do without is the same. So all this to say that you as the parent have the most sacred job in the world, for which, incidentally, you didn't have to go to school for, get a degree, go through any sort of self-awareness program, but you were allowed to have children. Now, I can't even fathom that, but maybe one day in the world it will change, and we'll have only conscious people raising children, but that's a long time coming. Till then, we will be raising unconsciously and raising children who don't know who it is they are. So at least in this room, can I wake you up enough that don't raise your children to the degree of unconsciousness that you have been. Raise them in an awakened way. Wake up a little bit. Change the game a little bit. The next time you yell at your kids, don't just feel so good about yourself and superior because the book told you you could dominate your kid and your kid should not talk back to you. No, do it a little differently, with a little bit more awareness, with a little bit of compassion and humility. Go inside. Ask yourself, what was it about me that caused this moment? And take a little responsibility. And then go talk to your children. And then tell them that they are not their career, they are not their beauty, they are not anything related to money, related to status. They are something far more precious. They are truly their essence, the essence that is unrelated to anything on the outside. Tell them that they can be whoever it is they want to be in the outside world because who they are is already perfect. So it's up to you to plant those seeds. Because if the seeds are not planted, as I said, in early childhood, it's very hard for the 50-year-old to go back, dig out the old, and then plant new seeds. Trust me, you and I know how hard it is to change the tape. So you have the power to put in the right tape. Pay attention. Put in the right words, the right consciousness. Teach them that who it is they are is already full of worth. This is your sacred mandate as a parent. It's not to raise the next Julia Roberts or Michael Phelps. It is truly to honor the spirit before you. So that is my challenge to you. I hope you will rise to it. Thank you.
We will open for Q&A.
Okay.
Please have a seat. I think I was a little bit nervous in the introduction, but I think this is amazing because the parenting books teach you again how to, control your children, how to make your children perfect. And as parents, I mean, we all share the same idea. Who doesn't want their children to be perfect? I mean, who doesn't want people? And I realize when you talk about being conscious that this is our own hidden agenda for our children. I mean, when we want them to go to a school, because we want people to say, oh, your child is studying this. Or when we make sure that they get all of these fancy stuff, because it makes us feel good. It's not the child. And I know I go through these, it's not the child, it's mostly about us.
And in fact, that's a sure sign that you from inside are feeling dreadfully imperfect, dreadfully worthless. That's a sure sign. But because we're not trained as parents to look inside, we project that onto our children and go and brush them up a little bit more, make them perfect. But we must change the inquiry. We must stop looking out and look inside.
It's hard for a parent to think, I'll open if anyone has a question, please raise your hand and join me in this conversation. It's very hard we have a question. It's very hard to acknowledge that it's our imperfections being projected, our own egos are guiding us through our parenting journey with our children. Yes.
Hi, Shefali.
Hi.
My question is, I was an average student myself, but I have been blessed with an extraordinary child who has a talent which is by the teachers, it's been confirmed by everybody that this child is very special. They are doing things which not even adults can do in the field that they are going into. Now, does that give me extra responsibility because they are extra talented? So I have to take care that they actually go to the best college or they're given the best care to polish that talent.
So we're going to use her question as an example. You don't mind? You don't mind if I use it? So it's not personal to you, but I will try to answer your question, but make it general for everybody. Yeah?
Okay.
Okay. So you'll see in how she was already full of adjectives that all of us parents use, not just you. So you started out by saying, I myself was just an, what did you say? Average student. Just there, we can stop and have a whole session, right? I was an average student. What she means, perhaps, is that her grades were average, correct? But let me tell you, you were never average. You see, just here is an example of a cultural imposition on a child and how we raise the child's mind so that now she's an adult calling herself an average. She was average nothing. All she was a child who had grades that fell in the average range, but she's calling herself an average child. Okay, so let's just understand that that was a cultural projection that you've now labeled yourself with. Your next thing was, but my child is very special. Because my child, I'm just paraphrasing, like I'm talking about parents in general, how we talk, you know. So my child is very special because my child is very talented or very clever or very good at sports. It doesn't matter, right? Now, look how we've put a degree or an aura of specialness because now this child has, a child has talent. My child is going to show me like I'm more than than an average parent. Maybe I'm special now. Do you see how we're putting labels on things that don't need any labels? Because truth be told, every child is special and every child is talented. It's not just what culture puts as a label to endorse you. You understand? So then your third question was, do I have an extra responsibility to send him to some school? So now she's feeling pressure, right? Which is the parental specialty. We love to feel pressure. We feel pressure if the child is not special. We feel pressure if the child is special. It doesn't matter. We love to feel pressure. It's our trademark. Anxiety is our trademark. We're anxious about everything. If the kid poops too early, we're anxious. If the kid poops too late, we're anxious. If the kid talks too much, we're anxious. If the kid doesn't talk enough, we're anxious. If the kid talks to a stranger and says hello, on one hand we tell him that's so friendly. But if he talks to the wrong-looking stranger, we yell at him and go, don't talk to strangers. There's no way out of the madness that is called the parent. We can't escape ourselves. We're insane. Okay, not you, we. But so she now she's feeling pressure. What my point is, it's all constructed. None of this is real. You have no pressure, whether he was talented or not talented. Because truth be told, even if he went to the most fancy schmancy school, or he went to the school round the corner, which no one has heard about, which is incidentally the school I went to in New Delhi, no one's heard about it, it doesn't matter. The success doesn't come from these things. The success comes from him knowing who it is he is, and from him believing that his worth actually doesn't come from any of these things. His worth comes from a place deep within him. You cannot get it wrong, and you can't do it better. It is what it is. Now, of course, you want to guide him away from drugs, away from, the obvious self-harming, self-destructive things. But our fixation and obsession around getting the school right, tell them your story.
Yes. For me, because when I've read her book, you're not alone. Everybody does it. When I was pregnant 3 months with my first child, I'm a mom of 3, God bless them all. My husband knows this. I was going through a list of schools, and I was thinking which school he should go to. We have different schools. I want to make sure that he goes, which curriculum should he does, American or British? And I would actually go to the schools and do tour visits with other parents. I was that crazy.
And the child was in your womb?
Yes, because I was unconsciously, I was so obsessed of that he has to be perfect.
Correct.
He has to be the best of the best. I want him Who doesn't want that? I mean, everything we do every day, you know, you want everybody to say, mashallah, yani, Wild Fatma is doing amazingly, you know? And that's what I wanted. And I felt...
Right, so you were living to the crowd, and you were living to the culture, and the child isn't even born yet. What I'm saying, and related to her earnest question, your question is earnest, but it's misguided because of what culture has done to you and what culture does to us. Culture tells us that these things are important. And that's why I started my talk with the checklist and how the checklist is an illusion. So yes, you will guide him to a good match, but don't be thinking that that is going to make him any happier as an adult. None of what his talents are will make him a better human being from within.
I think this
Only
is
his sense of self and his unreliance on these external things. You see, later in life, you're still young, but most of the people I meet in their 60s and 70s, definitely in their 80s, by their 80s, by the time we reach our 80s, we begin to understand, gee, the whole of my life, I have played to the other person. I have played to Facebook. I have played to my culture, to my family. Has it made me any more happy? And then finally in your 80s you realize, but you also realize it's a bit too late, so you want to shut the door, but the door keeps opening. Now you're like, "Kach, do I have a chance to finally be the most authentic me, or am I going to keep playing a game?" So schools your kid goes to, the things he does, the money he makes, are all great to survive, but it will not make your child any happier. The only thing that will make your child happier is him or her feeling a sense of worth, that who it is they are is perfect no matter what.
And I think this is key. But then what does a parent do? I mean, you know, some of us probably wondering, like, yeah, we will guide them through that journey. It's hard to separate. Sometimes you fall and your unconscious leads you in a way. Do you know what I mean?
All the time.
Like, how to keep conscious, how to stay a conscious parent throughout the journey.
Well, the first step is even the entertainment, that it's all your unconscious. In fact, every word out of your mouth is one more unconscious word. Just that awareness will make you be quiet for a few days, right? I tell parents, like, don't speak for a week. You will see that you're not nothing is changing on the outside, because everything you're saying is only, at best, being ignored by your child or harmful. Very little that you're saying is actually moving them toward their true self. So let's take a pause from all lectures, all opinions, all commands, and just begin to watch who your child is in silence. Begin to notice who it is they are. How many of you walk into the house and begin to issue commands? Why are your shoes here? Who didn't finish the homework? Why wasn't the dog taken out? You haven't had a shower? Look at your teeth. That one tooth is yellow. We just keep going on and on. You know why? Why we do this? This manic self-obsession that she had when her child wasn't even born. It shows a complete lack of fulfillment in your own life. We are not happy with ourselves. We are bored with ourselves. We love to overmanage our children's lives because we have no interest in being silent with ourselves. This gives us a purpose. That's why we're making PhD projects out of them. They must be PhD level, right? Because this is our passion. But our passion needs to be ourselves, not our children. Our children are not here to complete our unfulfilled fantasies. That's our job. We're using our children, you understand? We are abducting their true spirits, transplanting their true selves with our unfinished business and fulfilling ourselves through their lives. It's a sickness. Truly, there will be a diagnosis coming out for parental insanity.
Do you have any questions? Yes.
Dr.
Oh, yeah, go on.
Dr. Shefali, so how do we find ourselves? How do we work with ourselves so that we could be the better parents that you're saying? That's question one. And two, as opposed to disciplining, as you don't like to use that term, how do we, I wouldn't say discipline, but guide our kids to, you know, to take the right path, you know?
Sure, sure.
Do you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
other than saying, don't do this, don't do that, you know, you feel that you've got sort of more experience and you want to pass that on to them, and that's where some of it comes from.
Well, the first question is, you know, the million-dollar question. It is the question. How do you work on finding who it is you are? Right? So this is a journey. This is not a strategy. This is not a 1, 2, 3 I can give you right now. It's your whole commitment to how you want to live your life. I tell parents, don't say a word to your child. Just raise yourself. Because when you raise yourself, through that raising of your consciousness, you begin to embody a different energy, and your child will pick up what your child will pick up through that. You think through the ordering or the lecturing or the dictatorship or the discipline, you're teaching your children a higher consciousness? No. They will only learn a higher consciousness when they watch you embody that. So this is as important as your career. For me, my sitting in silence and meditating and taking my own self-awareness seriously is side by side as everything else I do. Making money, running a home, raising my child, being in a marriage, it's equal. Because from this clarity comes all other clarity, right? If you yourself are messed up, you don't know who you are, then you're going to vomit out all this disorganization, all this toxicity, and not even know that you are. So that's a whole process. And then your second question of discipline, so what I've done with the discipline process is not say don't be there for your children and don't guide them. What I've said is don't blindly dominate them and call it discipline. So what can you do instead? There are a million things to do with your child when your child does something wrong. And I always start with, okay, if you're at work and you forgot a big deadline and your boss got upset with you, how would you like your boss to treat you? Would you like them to make a really beautiful naughty corner for you that you go sit in? Pad it with really pretty cushions? What about give you an ice cream when you're sitting there? Would that help you? Would that teach you anything? No. How about he puts your name on a board so the whole company can see it? And then put 3 crosses, and then green ribbons, and then red ribbons. You know, all these strategies that they do in schools. Would you like that? No. So when I show parents how humiliating it is to be the recipient of what we willingly, willy-nilly throw at our children, they get red stars, red stop, go, you know, all these things they do at school, 2 crosses, 3 crosses. The other day, my friend showed me an elaborate chart. How many of you have made elaborate charts? Color-coded, come on. Come on, all of you have made charts at home, right? So this woman had made like 7-layer chart. You know, first he'll sit still, then he'll eat his food, then he'll say thank you. Like impossible, even I couldn't go through the chart. So they were always getting stuck at rung 1 because it was impossible. All the kid was interested in was the treat that was going to come after every rung. Not the rung itself. It became about the reward. So this is how we're raising our children, carrot and stick, and reward and punishment. So I'm saying do away with this. What do you do instead? You talk to your kid, you come up with a negotiation together, you create a win-win solution. What is going on with you? What can I do to help you? You create, you not create, but you institute wherever possible a natural consequence.
This is what I was going to. I mean, we put so many fancy words to discipline. Consequences, you know, instead of a naughty corner, it's called a thinking chair. We create all these different ways
to control our children.
Yes, and right. I think it's very key that you look at a child, regardless of their age, of their own spirit on its own, that you need to respect their boundaries, you need to respect their minds. We have a question over here.
Hello. First of all, thank you, Fatima, for allowing me to be here with my child. You came out in the right moment. I have a comment and I have a question. My comment is I'm really happy that I came out here. I actually lead this parenting circle in Abu Dhabi that's both Emirati and expat called Whole Circle, and we read different parenting books. So I would love to order some of your books for our next. My question is, it doesn't seem like the parenting thing is what my husband and I are struggling with as much. He's a child psychologist, so we're both kind of spiritual by nature. So we're very keen into this, you know, subconscious and the true purpose of living. And we, you know, teach or live that a lot in our household. Our problem is this. we're a very multicultural, multi-religious household. So my husband is American, and his family's mixed, and I myself am Sudanese, but left Sudan when I was 4. My father was a diplomat, lived in Syria and Egypt, and he was an expat in Saudi, and I'm a mix of a lot of things, never had a root or home or whatever. So we subject our children to a lot of pressures of other people's conscience. So we would travel to Seattle, and my kids are very not behaved, and their grandmother is not, pleased with them or whatever. So we're like trying to shield them from that. Then we take them to Sudan, and my kids are kind of mix match type thing. But then we have relatives coming in a lot, and I have a relative who lives with me for 2 years, and she's always like criticizing our parenting, and the children are feeling that. So it's almost like the problem with globalization and being a third culture child and being a child of mixed parents. Even like it's hard to strongly tell our children what we kind of believe in, because we don't want to tell them, for example, this is the way, and then they go and tell their grandmother, I don't think you're right because you don't pray, grandma, are you Muslim, like we have a lot of issues of not strongly living our true identities because of all of these players in the field, and it's just so, it stresses me out. I'm stressed every day with this.
Does it matter, Dr. Shefali, with all these factors?
Let me understand. So you want your children to be in a certain way, and you're feeling like you can't do it because your way may be against the other's ways?
Yeah, it's like almost like if we're alone, we're in our element. We just were in Paris, and we were a family. It was, the children were behaving great, we were happy, we were great. We come back here, and there's all of these people, right, in our household. There's my aunt, there's the nanny, there's all of these people who are like
Contributing,
projecting their mirrors onto my children. And you can't cut off all of these people. It's not like the parent. My problem is those others that are part of their lives,
Right,
but it's...
Right. So it's not you are talking about others like even one step removed, but I'll make it universal. Many of you will have a different parenting style with your partner, right? Now, talk about like clashing there, right? That's even more prototypical. Many homes where the partner is not trying to be conscious and one is trying to be conscious. So I'm going to make it universal, your question. How do you relate with difference? This is not about you all being so amazing and everyone else being evil, or the wife saying, I'm perfect, but my husband's not perfect, which is often the complaint. And even though she's often right, this is not about that. This is about negotiating difference. This is not a utopia. This is not about, having it easy, right? At least when you're like together, there's some semblance of identity. This is just the way of life. I mean, unless, like you said, you cut off people, right? We want everything, right? We want the grandmother who babysits the kid, but we don't like the grandmother who then controls the kid or gives your kid too much candy. You can't have it always. Like, this is what's going to happen. As you become, in fact, more conscious, you're going to see more unconsciousness around you. So what are you going to do? Go live in a bubble? No. You're going to have to learn to negotiate this. It's messy. Life is messy. There's no perfect answer to this.
Are the kids affected? I'm worried
But the kids
about
are affected, period. My kid is already messed up. I mean, there's no perfection here. We are messed up. This is like a fact of life. It's humanity. So we're not seeking to not mess up our kid. We're seeking to become growingly more and more conscious. This is not about, oh, don't mess my beautiful kid up. Oh, don't talk to my kid like this, right? But I was just like you. The first time somebody said shut up in front of my kid, I was like, oh God, close your... Now I'm saying shut up in front of my kid, right? But you try to create this pristine environment which cannot occur. So the only other advice I'd give you, and to the wife who's feeling like the husband is against her, or the husband feeling like the wife, is you have to become clear on your boundaries, right? How much do you allow those people to come into your kid's life? And then you have to negotiate that. Maybe you do piss a few people off. You can't have it all perfect. Everyone happy with you, but you not happy with them, but then you want them in your life, but then you don't want them affecting your children. So this is the way of life and messy people, you know.
Do you have any more questions? Yes. Oh, we have one here, and then we'll come back here. Yes.
Hello, thank you for your authentic message. It was a little hard to hear because I'm a school counselor, and so some of the light bulb moments like, oh, this is what I'm doing wrong as a mom, and I'm a school counselor who know better. So the question I have is more so, I have a very energetic, just outgoing child. And the struggle I'm having now is the school is labeling him. And so we do I am statements in the mirror. We are now doing more yoga and meditation because that's what I do. But when he goes to school, I can feel the unspoken not being nurtured but being labeled because he has lots of energy. He does. So how do I, as a parent, continue to nurture that, but also help the school see it, which, by the way, I work at the school. So it makes it even more difficult.
Can I say something?
Yes.
This goes back to, again, the us. You know, we're very about us. It's you know.
Say more. In what way?
Yeah, I mean, I felt the same way when, let me share with you a story. Like, my son, every Friday, it's a very tradition in Marathi families, that every Friday the whole family will gather. And because he's the first grandchild, he's the boy, he has to wear the traditional kandora. My son refused to wear kandoras. He doesn't want to wear kandoras. He doesn't want to put the hand. He wants to go in his pajamas. And it's a battle. I'm like, every time that Thursday comes, I'd be like, oh my God, I have to go through this on Friday. Then I realized when I read your book and I saw your session that I was more worried about what people would think of him because they might think I'm not a good mom. But the truth is, it doesn't matter. You know, he's an amazing child. He wants to stay in pajama. It's okay. It's up to you. You can wear pajama 24/7. I don't think he will wear pajamas when he's at 25, you know. I think we automatically think that our kids will stay like that forever. But we don't realize that they're just two, and that's not going to be forever. And then once I just let go, he on his own would, you know, he grew up now, he's 5. He chooses on his own to wear kandora. I don't have to interfere into that. But I think it's just we have to let go.
Well, I think there are many layers, right? So as a parent, you're constantly bombarded, first from your family, right? What do they think of me? That's the first layer of projection. The deadliest projection comes from your own family. Then school. What is the school going to say? Now, the school is an unconscious culture. You are going to see the beast of it, especially if you have a son. There's a war, I believe, against young boys. 1 out of every 5 boys is labeled ADHD. 1 out of 9 or 7 girls is labeled ADHD. So the war on boys is a silent but prevalent war. It's not a joke. It exists. So your son, now you will face that in culture. Then if he's you know, of a different culture, a different religion. So it keeps going. These are the layers: your family, the school, culture, race, religion. It keeps going. So you as a parent, at each step, have to make the choice of making it about you or truly and find the best for your son without making it about you. Very hard to do because you're already anxious. You're already thinking, what is the school thinking that my child, the school counselor's child, is getting into trouble? So now you're making it all about you more than just what it is. Very difficult, but this is your task. This is your challenge. You have a unique position to change the school culture, and a curse because you are part of the school culture. So you're going to have to negotiate that. And maybe you pull him out, maybe you keep him there. It's moment by moment. You see, we want all the answers. There is no such thing, right? Just because you had a child doesn't mean figuring out your child's life is any different than figuring out your own life. It's moment by moment. It's step by step. But you want the clear bill of health and sanity and success from now till like age 45. It doesn't exist. Many things are going to happen to your children which are out of your control. Out of your control. Are you ready for that? You see, having a child in some way made you think you were in control. You are the least in control. You have no control over your own life, let alone your child's life. So understanding this is an adventure, this is a learning. We're only learning here, really. But we forget that because we think we're raising a successful person. You see, a puppet, a product. But if we can reframe it to that this is just a learning, this is just an adventure, this is just a moment in time, then you'll enter it with courage, with curiosity, rather than depression and anxiety and labeling your child. Don't buy into what culture says your child is, either good or bad. Don't buy into the good either, because it's all projection. Culture only likes one kind of kid, either very good looking, or very smart, or very good. That's it. And very talented, but very something good, you know, which fits the ideal of culture. The minute your kid goes out of that, a little bit too fat, a little bit too noisy, a little bit too clumsy, a little bit all over the place, that's it, your kid's going to be labeled. It's so simple. Do you want to fall into that trap? You do not. You want to be more intelligent, more elevated than that. Don't fall into the trap. But that's where your individual worth gets tested.
I think, let me open for a question.
Is it on? Hi. Hi, Dr. Shefali. I'm a huge fan. I was just telling my friend Angela that I'm sort of a groupie, so thank you so much for coming to Abu Dhabi. This has been truly an honor. I just wanted to ask you a little bit about a personal experience that I have with my son. He's not a very good eater, which is a bit difficult for me because I'm a chef, so you can see where that...
Perfection.
You know,
it's perfection.
It's me wanting to have this amazing kid that eats, you know, these amazing
gourmet
things.
food. And,
So I've come to the consciousness, having read your book and having worked on my inner self, to understand that I was trying to control the situation with his food, and it's obviously gone the complete opposite way, and he refuses to eat. And I mean refuses to eat.
How old is he now?
He's 3, turning 4 soon. So he's in that phase where he's obviously testing, and you know, my husband and I have gone through a lot of internal work, and I've come to a lot of, you know, consciousness about why it's so important for me for him to eat, and why it's so important for me to control the situation. So I'm conscious to it, and I've started to work towards bridging our disconnect, my son and I's disconnect over his food. We've come to the point where I believe I have understood where I'm coming from. I still find him stuck where he is, and trying to bring him past and bridge the gap from his side. So I've come to consciousness, I have an issue with him not eating or eating. I've come to terms with that, so now I've removed myself. I've tried to become more, you know, relaxed about it and whatever. My husband still says it's inside. That's why it's still manifesting. And he's like, you need to forgive yourself. Without forgiving yourself, you will never progress, because now he eats with my husband, he eats with his teacher, but he doesn't eat with me. So I'm hearing what people are saying, and I almost want to hear it back from you again, because I feel like I know what I need to do, and it's to let go of the control with his food. And by me even talking it out to you now, I can hear myself say it, and sometimes just voicing it is becoming...
So you're very brave for bringing it up, so thank you. And part of what I may say, because you've not fully forgiven yourself, may again re-trigger you, so just be aware that it's not my intention. And I don't think it will, but it may, just because you said you haven't fully forgiven yourself. But I want to use it as a teaching example that it is no coincidence that a chef will have a child with an eating problem, or a counselor will have a child with a rambunctious, out-of-control kid in her same school. This is the perfection of the pattern. The pattern knows how to show up. It shows up to knock you exactly where it's going to hurt the most. Otherwise, it won't be a problem, you see. Because food was perhaps, I'm just guessing, some way that you used to control your life and to find perfection and mastery, it was being used by you to overcome some weakness anyway. No, in your life, yeah. Because you were attached to food, like, I'm a chef, and I'm going to have different exquisite
It was good. It was good.
It was
The-
amazing
oh, yeah.
food, right? The spread was amazing. Herbs and insects made to be the most tastiest,
He's like,
right?
"Blah." I'm like,
Exactly. All the green foods made with like exquisite preparation. This was your love song. What I'm trying to show you is that you identified with being a chef because being a chef fulfilled an incomplete part of you. You thought it was what you were good at. You didn't realize to the extent to which you identified with producing good food. Okay, so you didn't know this. Now your kid comes and you're thinking it's to keep him healthy, right? Food is such I want to feed my kid. We don't realize how food quickly becomes one of the first ways we control our children. Because food in our life and many of our adult lives is still the way we are in control or out of control. Yes, every day is a battle with food, for women especially. It is the way we were taught to use our feelings. You didn't know all this, but then when you have a kid and he's showing signs of not loving your food that you've identified with, you now have control issues around it. And you projected that, he reacted, and now he's turned away from you and the food, right? He was your mirror to show you that you obviously used food to fulfill some emotional emptiness. Food wasn't just a function of hunger, it was for an emotional...
With him.
With him?
Or with myself.
It's the same. If you use it with one, it's because you use it with yourself. There's nothing we do with anyone else that we don't do with ourselves. So if we're not loving to our partners, it's because we're not loving to ourselves. If we're very loving to our partners, it could also mean we're not loving to ourselves, but mostly love comes from love from the self, authentic love. If you're truly authentically in love with someone or loving someone, authentically, not to please, not to get to the next day, not to finish a conflict, but authentic love, it comes from authentic love for the self. So anything you did with your child was coming from you. The reason it went wrong is because you saw yourself controlling your child through the food. This was your mirror to realize, why am I using food as a control? Or maybe I use food as a control in my own life, is what I'm saying. Your relationship to food was more than simply a talent. It was used for worth, for identity, and to fulfill that emotional self. You then put it on your kid. Your kid is now rejecting you. It's a big issue now. So now the task for you becomes, how do you separate the function of food just to fulfill hunger versus the emotional aspect that it brings up in you? Because now it's become all this emotional stuff. It's not just food. It's become this emotional battle for control, which is how you began your journey with food.
And I see it, when we sit down. I see that it's no longer about the food. He will, begin to start saying the things that he says as if it was an autopilot. It's just, I don't like this, and this looks weird, and this tastes weird, without having even been exposed to what I'm even putting in front of him. So it's already the tape is playing in his head.
Well, he's only 3. That's the only tape he knew.
Yeah.
It's taken you how many years? How old are you?
What am I, 37 now?
So it's taking you 37 years to undo something. The first tape in him is already in. He's not going to undo it right away. It's already his first tape. But what you can do now. Yeah. So what do you have to do now?
Change the tape, throw the tape away. No, I'm just kidding.
Well, you have to see how you're still getting triggered on the table. You have to see how the table and food is still an issue for you. How you cannot desensitize yourself from food. Like food is talking to you. When really food is just...
It doesn't have to be food. I mean, for other parents,
it could be
in different
sports.
things.
It could be sports. It could be homework. It could be the violin. It could be their hair. You know how many parents have a problem with their girl's hair and they have battles over the hair? I'm like, let the kid go without combing the hair. So it doesn't matter. You're right. The dress. So you have to, as you're sitting on the table, learn to untrigger yourself from food. You and food have a toxic relationship that needs to be cleaned up. And he feels that you don't see him for who he is. It's become more important. He knows that mommy cares more about the food than about me. You have to let that go and start showing him that you don't care if he eats or doesn't eat. I know it's really hard.
No, I've come to that point And then it was this whole, year of the Lebne phase, is what we call it. He basically just ate like yogurt for, I would say, a good 6 months, because I was like, you know what? This is it. Do whatever. But I think that do whatever.
It's not a reaction to the over control, right? We're like, now do whatever. It's a genuine looking at him as a whole human being. He's not going to be better off with your food from an emotional place. He may just be a little healthier, but who even knows that? You have related food with emotion. That's the problem. And you have to separate the two. That's why all of us are overweight or anorexic or have food issues, especially women, because food and feelings were confused. I used to hear my own mother tell my daughter, "Oh, you're crying, come, let me give you an ice cream." I went, "Mom, how is food going to solve her tears?" My mom's like, it solves mine. I'm like, no, it momentarily solves yours. It doesn't, because we don't know how to deal with our emotions. We've used food or alcohol or sports or distractions like that.
Do we have any questions? Yes, over here. We went a little bit over time.
So maybe this can be the last question?
We have one more question
Okay.
here, and then we'll wrap up quick.
Hello, once again, thank you for being here. My question is, I don't know if there is a quick help or quick advice when we mess up, because even if we try to be conscious,
We will mess up.
sometimes
Sure.
we back. And it has happened that I mess up, and within a minute I know it and I realize it. It didn't take me to calm down, to just realize that I messed up. What do we do after?
Well, what do? We just do the human thing. We stop and we go say, "I'm so sorry. It was all me. I just messed up. I was in a bad mood. I was tired. I was fired from my job. I put on 5 pounds. It doesn't matter. I'm sorry." Your children will get over it. But you have to do more than just say sorry. You have to also go within and ask yourself, is this a pattern? Do I always do this? What's really going on inside me, right? You do the inner work, but you can go and just tell your kid, "Hey, I messed up. Mommy's messed up. I messed up." That's just the honest thing to do. There's no scientific great mystery behind this. You just have to go say, just own it.
We have I'm sorry for time. We have a question here.
Hello, yes. Before your session, I'm a strong believer in discipline. And because I come from a house where we live around 8 families and so many kids. And we have so many different parenting manners and different kinds of yes and no's. After your session, it's like you showed me a new path where I should be a conscious parent. But can you give me an advice to be a strict conscious parent? Or
Is there a strict conscious parent?
yes, because I don't want my kids to be involved with the activities others do. I'm putting them in a bubble as you described it, but I try to make them busy with other activities like
What is your fear that if you're not strict, because strict means different things for different people, so I'll just put it in quotes. If you're not strict, what will happen to them?
Other kids' parents goes they're kids. We can't tell them what to do and what not to do. They're just kids.
No, what is your fear?
I don't want them to do what others do.
Okay.
They say bad words.
Right, you think by being strict they're not going to say bad words?
No, they don't.
How old are your kids?
7 and 4. Because they know what will happen.
What will happen?
I give them 1, 2, and 3 times. The 4th time, they can choose to be hit with a shoe or a wire or something. They choose.
But you give them choice. Yeah, they choose if it's a shoe or a
The
wire.
first time it's once, second time it's twice, and we go on. But they don't do it again.
And it's okay. It's okay because
Yes.
I know some parents we're afraid to admit that. I think we grow up younger with the idea of discipline being
but
punished.
I talk to them about it. You know why I'm going to hit you, and they don't cry. They just stand still and they wait for it.
And I think a lot of people also think they believe in this method to
Because-
raise their children.
Yeah, so
It's
They say,
easy.
we grow up that way. We turn out okay.
And let me
our
ask
kids
you,
will be
so-
okay too.
So many Emirati
So let me
families-
ask you something. So I'm going to just use her as an example. So what if they did say a bad word after they got the shoe or the wire? Then what?
Then I'll go for it never happened, so I never thought about it.
Okay, because your kids are only 7 and 4 and it's already happened. So chances are by the time they're 11 and 12, they're going to say at least one more bad word in their life. What's going to happen then?
And I'm always thinking about it. Like, I'm raising my children in a certain way. Others are not. But still, after, like, when they're teenagers, they will live together. They will have the same interests and they will have the same environment. I won't be able to control them. That's why
you're worried, right? You're like, what?
Yes.
So what would you do? But I'm challenging us now to think, what will we do if the kid does the unimaginable? Oh my God, said another bad word. Now what do we do? See, that's what I'm trying to show you.
Yes.
The shoe, the wire, then what? What's the third one? Burn them, like tie them up to... It's stupid, right? It's because it starts stupid. Sorry, not you. The action is stupid, and then you run out of stupid options because you realize, short of, taping them out, there's really nothing else to do, right? Do you want to go down this path? Because do you want to always be chasing them? Did you just say a bad word? Did you just do something bad? And you're the enforcer? Do you think enforcing them by being a police is the way? I have many adults who tell me their mouths were washed by soap. Anyone here? No? It's definitely an American disciplinary strategy to wash the kid's mouth with soap. Do you think those adults do not use bad words? So my point is that you're trying to control humanity. You're trying to control the human experience.
It's not just the bad words. They also do so many awful things. Like they do number 1 or 2 outside on the playground, and it's okay, they're just kids. And I'm like, no, they're not just kids. You have to show them. They have to go to the toilet. They're not just kids. And like they make...
because this is... can I share?
Yes. They run after cars. When the cars are coming, they run after cars.
Right, but there are a million things. Exactly,
yes.
a million things.
I want my children to believe in that's wrong. It's not because my mother is saying it's wrong. I want them to believe in it.
Correct. So is there any other way to show them to believe the right and wrong besides hitting them?
I have to be a strict, conscious parent. But does it?
Well, first you have to take out the idea that hitting someone is going to teach. So first you have to eliminate all your fantasies around that.
Hitting is
can I just share this point? This is very crucial because you remind me of something. I remember seeing this in one of the sessions where, one of the parents were saying, you said that a 2-year-old or a 5-year-old or even a 7-year-old, when they're being hit or being yelled at, they never think in their mind that, oh yeah, my mom shouted at me because I did this wrong. They don't think that way. And if we go back and remember how we were when we were kids and when our mom or our dad yelled at us or punished us in any way, we never thought that our parents were doing us good. Remember, I don't know if any of you remember that, how that felt?
Yeah, did you say, thank you, my parents are so sweet?
Thank you, Mom, because you yelled at me. You're teaching me the right path. They don't see it that way. They don't. So it doesn't work.
What you're doing is just making them fear you. And by the time they're 12 and 13, they just will hide from you.
Yes.
Correct? So you want to do something else?
Yes.
Okay. You're already changed. You're not going to hit them anymore.
I don't. It's like once a month.
I hear you. I'm not judging you. I hear you. You're so brave. You're so brave to just be honest about it. Let me tell you, it's happening in all homes. So I'm not judging you. I'm challenging you to see the futility of it. It's actually doing something in the reverse of what you want. It's actually going to make them more hide, sneak, and lie. More. You're going to make them more defiant. It may not show up tomorrow, but it'll show up with their children. It'll show up when they're drinking too much, when they're eating too much. It'll show up in some way because the human spirit doesn't like to be humiliated. The human spirit doesn't like to be stamped. Did you like it when you were a child? So just because your child is not crying, that's your justification to yourself. Right? It didn't hurt him. It didn't leave any marks. That's just us taking care of our guilt. So how do you be different? Well, the answer is that you have boundaries, but you cannot cut them off from living a life. Like you're telling me, like if they chase a car, Every kid is going to chase a car till they get hurt and realize that. Every kid is maybe going to lie and cheat once or twice, but they learn not from violence, they learn from maturity, from you teaching them through just talking to them. You know, there are many ways to teach your children besides violence. Maybe they don't go out with their friends for 2 nights. Maybe you keep them home. Maybe you read a book with them. Maybe you just simply talk to them. Maybe you ask them how they're feeling. Most children find their compass without violence, even without religion, believe it or not. Because we are inherently wanting to be good. We want to be good. We don't grow up wanting to be evil.
You know?
Evil doesn't come from chasing cars and speaking bad words. Evil comes from a disconnection to one's own heart. Violence to another doesn't come because you said a bad word. Violence to another comes because, violence doesn't come because you said a bad word and your mother didn't hit you. Violence comes because you're disconnected to yourself. So they're completely different things you're talking about, thinking they're the same thing. They're not. So go gentle on your kid, because very soon when he turns 12 or 13, and let them say a bad word or two. Pretend you didn't hear it. It's not the end of the world, you know. Every bad word, if you want to control, you're going to suffer. You're going to suffer.
That's again, we can't, you want...
I think the thing is, like, just to reply to you, it's in our culture. The thing that about hitting the kids, it's in our culture. While this is what are we suffering from, and I think just like I just want to share that. I come from a mixed family, as my wife has actually as well, and which is like coming back to culture. That my mom, she sees that the way I am, or my dad doesn't believe in that. Even with my son, when he was eating, he's like, let him eat, let him spread the food everywhere. And I'm just fine, okay, that's fine. No one have to tell me, or no one have to tell you how to raise your how to raise your kids. Always believe in yourself. Never ever hit them, because I always like talk to my wife, and she always like see the videos. She sent me the videos, because I always say that if you hit your kid now, he will remember no matter what, and he will do the same to you.
Thank you. So just to end today, first I want to say thank you for your courage and your willingness to be here to listen to ideas that make us all uncomfortable. These are not easy ideas, so I applaud you, and I take great humility at your willingness to be open. The takeaway really is that this is all about you. So take this journey as with your children as not one where you're raising them, but one where you're raising your own level of awareness, presence, compassion, and consciousness. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Shefali. We're here very happy to have you here. We have a book signing afterwards. I would urge you to read all the amazing books.